Hey, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
powered by DoorDash. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond a Ballot. I'm Rachel. Here's Amanda. Hello.
Hello.
Well, it's exciting times in British Columbia, and we are so thrilled to have this episode happening because we had the pleasure of being able to talk to the leaders, a couple of the leaders in British Columbia, and it's going to be wild times tomorrow.
So you have been so in it.
So in it.
So in it. And so tell our listeners what you've been up to for the past month. And then I have a couple of questions for you as we head into election day tomorrow.
Well, I'm just trying to ride this wave of like every day is a new adventure in this campaign. I was just having a conversation with somebody actually, and I was saying this has been, in my 20 years of campaigning, one of the most interesting elections. And I'll tell you why. Because all the rules kind of went out the window. First of all, we went into this campaign a few months ago with multiple parties, including the BC United, which was kind of the centrist party. Then the BC United leader came out and said, hey, actually, we're not going to run any candidates. We're still going to be a party, but we're not going to run any candidates in this election. And we're going to put our support behind the BC Conservatives, a party which has never elected a member in the legislature and is now neck and neck with the sitting government in these polls. And who knows what tomorrow will bring. It's just absolutely wild.
So the polls are saying that it's neck and neck. What is your gut on what happens tomorrow? And tell us why.
Okay, so here's what's hilarious is that every day I think, okay, the NDP are going to win. Nope, the Conservatives are going to win. Nope. And so I keep flip-flopping, and I'm pretty good with these like gut checks when it comes to elections. Mm-hmm. But again, because this one has been so crazy, I have no idea where to land. I mean, other things like the Conservatives only put out their platform a few days ago. Like people had already voted at advanced polls without seeing the Conservative platform, which is really atypical for a campaign. There's just been so many things that have happened that when you think about the playbook of elections, this one has like thrown that whole playbook out the window, and it's been okay. That's the crazy part.
One of the things that we always talk about on election day is who has the best organization, who has the best ground game, who can get people to the ballot boxes.
Yeah.
Are the Conservatives at a disadvantage in that regard? Because obviously the NDP have done it on multiple occasions.
Definitely. I mean, the NDP are a well-oiled machine. They have the resources of government. They have the resources of knowing when the election was going to be held. The Conservatives are, I don't know if it's a disadvantage, but it's definitely an uphill battle. So things like getting candidates to do debates, they've said that they actually would rather those candidates door knock because they're not working off of lists, or they don't have the same party apparatus that BC United, who is an existing party, or the BC NDP had. So it's definitely been an uphill battle for them. But the crazy part is that they've maintained this like neck and neck with the NDP over at least the last month.
So because BC United folded into the Conservatives for this election, are they still tapping into the BC United network, into the party apparatus, or no?
No, not at all. No money, no contacts,
no
list, nothing. And so it's just been fascinating to watch. In fact, when Kevin Falcon, the leader of BC United, originally said they're not going to run people, many thought that would mean all the BC United support shifted over to the Conservatives. Interestingly, it did not. It did not. So there's a lot of centrist federal liberals that are saying, I can't vote BC Conservative. I'm going to vote BC NDP or even the Greens in this election.
No matter what happens, though, this is a big power play for BC Conservatives. I mean, no matter what, they are gaining all kinds of seats tomorrow. they may win this election. If they don't win it, it will likely be really close. What does this mean for the BC Conservatives, even if they lose the election tomorrow? Do you sense that this is kind of the swell of support for them is going to change the way BC politics is working right now?
So somebody said to me during this campaign, it's always been a big tent with the Liberals leading the charge. And now it's a big tent with the Conservatives leading a charge. So that for me is an interesting way of thinking about it. And BC is historically flip-flopped. I mean, we had the Social Credit Party, which was a bit more aligned to the Conservatives. So we've gone back and forth on the center right here in this province. But this is historic because there's never been a BC Conservative opposition. And if nothing else, John Rustad will be either the premier tomorrow or the leader of the opposition. And having gone from a party where they've never elected one seat in this province, John Rustad sat as a BC Conservative MLA, but that's because he crossed the floor when he was kicked out from BC United. And then Bruce Banman and a couple of others from BC United that crossed the floor. But we've never seen this before. The other thing on the NDP side is that they've been so popular. And John Horgan, who was their former leader, was such a popular premier. Yeah. Even through the last election, the height of the pandemic, they did really well. So regardless of who wins, who loses, this has been an incredible campaign to watch. It's also going to be a historic night in any sense of the outcome. And then the Greens, obviously, and the independents. We have more independents running in this campaign than ever before. And so in 2017, John Horgan created a coalition with, or confidence and supply agreement with the Greens to form government. The question is, will tomorrow night play out that either John Rustad or David Eby need the Greens or the independents running in order to form government, and we come out with some kind of coalition again?
Ooh. So exciting. Yeah. And I know you've been so excited. And you're going to be covering a lot of this on election day.
I am.
Watch Rachel on CBC on election day night.
Yes. Day and night. Literally, I'm there for hours and hours. But in BC, we have these new voting machines too, just for the nerdy people that are listening. They're electronic. And I've heard from a few of my Instagram followers that the voting process has been really awesome because they've been updated, which we don't often see in BC because we have pretty archaic voting machines. But apparently they're awesome. And apparently we're going to get results really, really fast. So that's exciting.
Well, we'll all be watching. But before we watch, let's talk to some of these leaders.
Let's talk to them. All right. Well, we'll be right back with David Eby, the leader of the BC NDP. And now a word from our title sponsor, DoorDash. Season 2 of Beyond a Ballot is officially powered by DoorDash. Just like we go beyond a ballot, DoorDash goes beyond delivery. DoorDash is committed to helping merchants reach new customers, providing Dashers with flexibility, and by helping everyday Canadians find more time for what matters most. On our last episode, we highlighted DoorDash's first ever Canadian Impact Report, covering the positive impact that the platform has had on local merchants and communities across Canada. This week, we're going to talk to Tanya Muller, owner of Le Gâteau Bake Shop in Vancouver, BC, a Made by Women partner and grant recipient. Made by Women celebrates and amplifies women chefs and restaurateurs who partner with DoorDash, helping provide visibility and resources to support the growth of their businesses. Here's what owner Tanya Muller had to say about working with DoorDash.
Working with DoorDash, I've found that they've been really interested in helping me grow my business and help offer the tools to do that as well. It increases our visibility and then makes it easier for us to grow our customer base. I felt like I've been lucky to have the opportunity to get to where I am, and I wanted to share what I know with the next generation of pastry chefs as well as the next generation of women business owners supporting women-owned businesses. For me, it is kind of like my why.
Premier David Eby, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. It's been probably a little bit of a busy time for you over the last few weeks. So we want to make sure we just jump right in here and start with our first question for you, which is, why should women in British Columbia be voting for you tomorrow?
It's a really good question. And it overlaps a little bit with the question of the election, which we hope people answer in the affirmative for the BC NDP and for our government. The proposals that are coming forward from the two parties couldn't be more starkly different. Regardless of whether you're a woman voter or a male voter or whatever reason you have to vote, I mean, there's a lot on the line. We're talking about proposals from the BC Conservatives around dramatic cuts to healthcare and other critical programs in the province people have come to rely on, like more affordable childcare. And in addition, though, and I think particularly troubling for me and maybe particularly relevant for women voters, but I think for all voters, is the candidates that have been put forward by the BC Conservative Party that are not representative of the values of our province when it comes to being an inclusive and welcoming place for everybody, whether it's targeting people who are gay or whether it's particularly going after women or attacking reproductive freedoms. The candidates that have been handpicked by John Rustad, who himself believes that climate change is a lie, reflects some really awful conspiracy theories and divisive politics that we just haven't seen from any political party in the province's modern history. And so whether it's to protect key social programs like healthcare, make sure we're addressing those issues of affordable healthcare or housing, make sure people have access to affordable housing. The government needs to keep taking action to address the housing crisis that we face, or whether it's just to ensure that we're protecting our shared values of British Columbia is what makes us strong working together. There's lots on the line for British Columbians in this election.
One of the things that you just spoke about that I find really interesting as a liberal sitting in our podcast right now is the idea of divisive politics that stems in some ways, as you've attributed to the Conservative Party. And yet we seem to be seeing a bit of a conservative wave across the country. Do you agree that there's a conservative wave? And what do you think is propelling that?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. I think I had an event with my friend Wab Kinew from Manitoba, who's recently elected NDP premier out there. If there's a wave of anything I'm really seeing in elections, it's an anti-incumbent kind of feeling that people have. And the reason is obvious, and we've seen dramatic increases in global inflation and central bank interest rates. It's pinching people where and their daily expenditure. If you have any kind of debt or a mortgage you're looking at renewing, there's lots of reasons to be frustrated right now. You're seeing your paychecks not going as far. And it's absolutely vital, I think, for any party that's vying for government to articulate, now, how are you going to support people in this time? How are you going to make sure that they're supported in this particularly uniquely challenging time when we have a climate crisis and we have challenges around housing, we have a toxic drug crisis, but then we also have this affordability piece that's threatening so many families. And so for us, these things are all intimately connected. Growing our economy by using our advantages here in BC around clean electricity, supporting people with access to affordable housing by using public land to build attainable homes, reining in the excess of the speculative market and around empty homes, vacant homes, and Airbnb and uses like that, and supporting people with those daily costs wherever we can around childcare, car insurance, hydro rates, tolls on bridges. We got to keep doing that work.
So Wab Kinew is my political crush. No offense.
I was in a park with Wab at a BC park. He came out to visit, and this lady was like, "Oh," she saw me. She was like, "Oh," and she was like, "Hi." And then I said, "Oh, I'm here with Wab Kinew from Manitoba." And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, Wab, I just love what you say so much." And then
I know.
Said, "And I'm here with Premier Eby." And she's like, "Yeah."
No offense,
right.
but I mean, he's awesome. And interestingly, on the carbon tax, Wab has been somebody who asked for them to not increase the carbon tax, that spike in April. You weren't originally aligned with him on that. You've now changed your position a little bit on carbon tax, on involuntary admissions, regarding mental health and addictions. What do you think are the biggest policies that have come out of your campaign? And what would you say to a British Columbian who is confused on your position, especially around carbon tax, where BC was the first province to bring it in. You've been really in support of it. And now I don't want to say you've completely changed, but you've somewhat changed your position on that. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think, this is a really challenging issue for British Columbians. And that's certainly one that I hoped would end up in a different place. I was very supportive of the idea that the government of Canada would follow on BC's footsteps and ensure a level playing field for British Columbians and BC companies across Canada, that everybody would have a carbon price. Unfortunately, it didn't manifest that way. I was really disappointed when there were exemptions for Atlantic Canada. The increases were quite significant, including in times of challenging affordability. It has really become politicized in a way that is quite dramatic, but more than that, I think for a lot of people, they're feeling like they have to choose between climate action on the one hand and paying their bills and covering their costs at the end of the day. And that is not a choice that I want for British Columbians. Our province is dramatically impacted by climate change, forest fires, smoky summers, heat dome, floods, pine beetle. I could go on, and we've seen it firsthand, and it's costing a lot of money to fix these things and to retrofit our province around changing climate. BC gets climate change, and we believe it's real. And to force people into that choice is not a good one. So for people, I want to be able to say something for them and their families. You're going to be able to address those affordability challenges that you face and elect a government that is committed to climate change, making sure that big polluters pay, for example. And that's where we're seeing our biggest bite on emissions reductions anyway. And it's also a pretty important distinction between us and the BC Conservative Party, which, unlike, I think, every other mainstream party in Canada, federally and provincially, refuses to acknowledge that human-caused climate change is a real thing, which has real implications for retrofitting our province to make sure communities are safe, as well as taking advantage of this amazing economic opportunity of being a low-carbon province because of our electricity and producing low-carbon products for the world, which gives us a real advantage as long as we don't go out and say, well, you're an idiot for buying low-carbon products because human-caused climate change isn't real. And I mean, that is really the choice that's in front of the province for this election.
It's sometimes when you're heading to the polls and you've been, fed a lot of information, you're trying to sift through that information. If you were like, this is the one takeaway that I want British Columbians to think about as they head to the polls, what would it be for you?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I think it's hard to choose just one piece, but I mean, for me, the reason why I got involved in politics, the interest that I had was around the housing issue. That was what the lawyering work that I was doing in the downtown east side was, that people are underhoused, becoming homeless. I think that so many of our challenges in the province are connected to housing and housing affordability. Economic growth is being constrained by the housing issue, the stress that young people feel about affordability and will I be able to build a good life for myself, that families feel, often connected to housing costs that seniors are facing. Am I going to be able to have a decent retirement? All these things. And so the difference between us and saying everything we can do on housing, every card on the table, we're going to play it. We're going to restrain demand in those toxic areas around investment and speculation. We're going to build more than one unit on a single family lot across the province. We're going to legalize townhomes and triplexes, and we're going to build high density near transit. We're just going to do these things and a lot more. And we're going to use public land to build attainable housing, all of the above. And the Conservatives saying, when John Rustad was asked, what are you going to keep of the NDP housing plan? And he says, not much. To go back to the old status quo on this critically important issue, I hope, and I'm putting a lot of money on the table, that British Columbians want change in housing, that they want us to keep pushing in this direction. Finally, rents are starting to come down in BC after setting record highs because we're building 4 times more rental housing than Ontario, because we're doing this work. Recently, a report out of McGill, because of the Airbnb rules, rents are coming down. And so we can't stop. We got to do all of the things, not just some of them. And we certainly shouldn't do none of them. So if the ballot question is housing, I think we'll be able to address a lot of the challenges in our province by continuing to take strong action on that.
And what do you say to the people, incumbent governments have the hardest time when we go into elections, right? Because you're running on a record. And so what about the people who are thinking, well, the NDP has been in government in BC now for, I believe, 9 years, and you've been leader for some of that. How is it going to change if you're reelected?
Yeah, it's been 7 years. I've been premier almost 2 years.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It included the COVID period, which felt like about 20 years.
Yeah, felt like 10 years. Yeah,
97 years exactly.
Exactly.
The thing is that the big challenges we face, the toxic drug crisis, the mental health fallout of all of that, how that looks on our streets, or housing, the access to an affordable home for you and your family, or healthcare. High quality hospitals with care right across the province. These are really profound and challenging issues that don't get resolved overnight. So I'm hopeful that people look and say, okay, finally rents are starting to come down. You connected in the last year, you connected 250,000 people to a family doctor. You're going to connect another 250,000 in the next 6 months. You're building a new hospital in my community. You're addressing the toxic drug crisis. You're trying different things, and making overdoses are coming down. We've got a new initiative around people really struggling with mental health issues, brain injury, and addiction in our streets to get them into that long-term secure care that they need. I can see where you're going, and I think those things are going to actually, over time, address those problems. And you're right. I mean, that these are problems that are multi-year to fix, and people get frustrated, rightly so, when they can't get the care they need when they want, or they can't find the place they need near where they work or in their community. And so it's a more challenging pitch, absolutely. But I also have the advantage that John Rustad was in government before, and so we know what he did, which was to cut access to healthcare, close hospitals. He abandoned people to the private market on housing, and so many other pieces. I think that there's a record for him as well.
Can I interject there and take your question, Amanda?
Sure.
I want to ask something on that. Sorry. You came in 2 years ago as leader after John Horgan, who was a very beloved BC premier through the pandemic. Amanda will know we had a very different experience than Ontario when it came to the pandemic. And many people said British Columbia did it the best, and we were free to roam. John Horgan was a big personality. For British Columbians that don't really know you yet, who is David Eby, and who will they be electing?
Yeah. John was a really great premier and a mentor, and remains so for me. He's facing some pretty serious health challenges, and so my thoughts are with him and his family as he battles cancer again. Quite horrible news. But yeah. I was honored to try to step into those Doc Martens and to take over following him stepping down for health reasons. And for me, if you want to, I used to have a great bio. Dave likes going to comedy shows, and he likes to do yoga, and he plays in a band, and it was like, oh, that's a very interesting, all-rounded person.
Ooh.
And then we had our first child, and gradually things drop off. We're a full-time family right now. I got 3 kids. I've got a 2-month-old, a 5-year-old, and our 9-year-old turns 10 tomorrow. As of the date of recording, as of the date of issuing, he'll be a proud 10-year-old. And we're busy. It's just full on at home and the job I have and the job Kaylee has. She's a family doctor, and our kids, we're family and work, and that's what we do. And so my major bio that's not work related involves my affection for reality shows like Below Deck and
really?
Yeah, Love Is Blind and
God, I love this.
And so that's my if I get 30 minutes, a little bit of streaming and something not particularly challenging is something that I really enjoy.
Kardashians? Are you a Kardashian fan?
Or something like that at the end of the day.
Oh my God, Premier David Eby, you're just like us. It's great.
Are you a Love Is Blind fan?
Yeah,
awesome.
Big time.
I love
Below
Below
Deck
Deck.
is so good.
Great show.
I'm deep in Mediterranean right now, Captain Sandy.
And you know why we say this? Because we all have young children. That's why. That's the stage
That
of
must be
life.
why. That's the
Yeah.
common. There you go.
That's where we are.
Like you're in it though. I mean, you have really young kids. So for a lot of our listeners who are in exactly the same stage of life where they're trying to juggle all the things and you have the added responsibility of running a province, put yourself in your parents' shoes for a minute and think about like as you think about this is the kind of province that I want to build and leave behind for my kids. Like what do you think is really on the minds of parents as they head into this important election?
Yeah, I think, this election feels like a bit of a crossroads for the province. And we've really resisted some of the temptations south of the border to veer into this kind of culture war territory. And it's really served us well in Canada and in British Columbia. And all of the parties have tried very hard, I think, to resist that until this election. And I just don't think it's going to serve us well. I think about, my kids going to school, who they're going to school with, the other kids in their class from around the world, all different backgrounds, different beliefs at home, maybe different foods and holidays they celebrate and everything else. That's the thing that's beautiful about our province. That's what brings us together. That's our strength. And as a port city, it's in Vancouver where I'm sitting right now. It's something that's, and there are many ports right up and down the coast. It's something that's been a reality for British Columbians for a long time. And so to divide people and to go into these kinds of you but not you, and this group but not that group, and I just really think we need to push back really hard on that. And I do want that province, and it's not a complicated vision, right? You're able to build a good life for you and your family. You can afford your home. You end the day, if you're working hard and playing by the rules, you end the day ahead of where you started. And kids have a good school. If you get sick, there's healthcare you need. British Columbians don't have, meeting those requirements for British Columbians, and they have a decent job where they can support their families. I mean, that's the expectation, and the government should be on their side to help them achieve those things. And that's my commitment to them, to help deliver that province where everyone has a shot at that.
Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you on behalf of all of the parents in the province, when are we going to have more $10 a day childcare? When's it coming?
Yeah, great question. And you're also asking on behalf of my amazing wife, because our 2-month-old is currently on a wait list. We are feeling, just like all British Columbians, the constraint and the demand around healthcare as our population grows here, around childcare as our population grows here. And so fingers crossed, because those spaces are so important for people. And we started in a place where childcare was $52 a day on average in this province, and we're down to $17 a day. And we've opened literally thousands of spaces for kids across the province. And we've got so much more to do. We've got this amazing program where we're using existing schools and existing staff in schools, educational assistants, to provide before and after school in 5 pilot districts now. And we're going to be able to roll that out across the whole province at minimal cost and high impact for families that need that before and after school care. There's no job that starts at 9 and ends at 3.
Amen.
So that's such a vital piece of the system. So you'll see expansions in that care across the province. We know we've got more to do. I'm proud of where we've come on that. And part of that is due to the representation of women in our caucus. We've had more than 50% women in our caucus for a while now in cabinet. Our candidates were 75% women that were running in this election. I think the Conservatives are 25%. And it's not like a box ticking exercise. When you have these voices in the room, then you end up with a government that prioritizes things like childcare, like free birth control, like cervical cancer screening at home as an initiative, like all of these other pieces that can get overlooked in a room full of dudes who are making the decisions. So, and it's not just women; it's the diversity of our province as well. One of the Conservative candidates said that our candidate group looked like we were doing an EDI exercise, which was in Conservative language, a slur against our candidates who represents so many different cultural groups in our province, I would put any of our candidates up against any of theirs any day of the week in terms of personal accomplishments, background, resume, and they're from all these different groups across the province, women and men, and we've got representatives of that practice most of the world's major religions, former police officers, activists, nonprofit workers, business people. So I think that diversity of views in the room is so important. It shapes policy and it makes government better.
I have a pressing question to end on.
Sure.
Can I ask, Amanda? I'm stealing all your
Absolutely.
questions today.
I love your pressing questions, Rachael.
How the heck did you get so tall? People don't realize I'm 5 feet. How tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
6'7". You probably
Yes.
drank the same milk as me growing up here in British Columbia, and yet you got almost 2 feet on me. Do you have
I don't.
tall
I've got a
family?
tiny mom too. My mom's
Really?
5'1". Yeah, and my dad was 6'1".
Wow.
But sometimes these weird things happen. I'm unusually tall. You're right.
It's great. It's great. Good for you. And the milk you were drinking growing
I
up.
was born this way.
I was born this way. I had to.
Well, we wish you all the best tomorrow at the polls. We really thank you for taking time out of what must be just an increasingly busy schedule. And we really thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for doing this work. And really appreciate being on the podcast.
Amazing.
Sonya Furstenau, the leader of the BC Greens, joins us now. Hi, Sonya.
Hi, Rachel.
We're so thrilled to have you on this week to talk about the Green campaign and your experience in politics. I have to point out from the get-go, you are the only woman running a political party in British Columbia right now. It was the same in the 2020 campaign. Does that make a difference in your day-to-day life on the campaign trail?
Well, I mean, I'm the only one that's a leader right now that's in menopause, so I bet that makes a difference.
I love that.
I'm very mindful to not forget to put my estrogen patch on a Monday morning. So I don't think the other leaders have to think about that.
So true. And they should actually. It was funny. I was listening to, there was a menopause campaign that they did in the UK. You may have heard of it, where they actually made these suits. They simulated the idea of a hot flash, and they had male politicians wear the suit so that they could appreciate what it would feel like to have a hot flash. And it was remarkably successful. So maybe you could bring that into the BC legislature,
Favorite and I think most appreciated statement that I've ever made in the BC legislature was the one about menopause. I made a 2-minute statement on International Women's Day, and I said, I'd like to talk about something that just doesn't get a lot of attention, and that's menopause. And I talked about, all of the symptoms, the hot flashes, the night sweats, the anxiety, all of the things that we go through, starting in our 40s and sometimes into our 60s, and the outpouring of appreciation after that was incredible. And I think, I've made a point of talking about menopause. I think it's a conversation that is starting to happen more and more. But I also think that talking about it, putting it out in the open, and laughing a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit funny what we have to go through menopause, and it takes a toll. It takes a toll on women. We see the economic impacts. We see the impacts to women leaving at the height of their careers. And I think we have such a long ways to go on addressing this public health issue. But I'm trying to bring that to the forefront of what it means to be a woman leader at 54.
Absolutely. And this is why it's so important to have women's voices in our legislatures across the country. So important. I'm curious because our listeners know I'm from Ontario, and we've been, covering this BC election. Rachael has all the goods. She's been talking about it every day. I'm still learning about BC politics. So for listeners across the country, to give us like a little snapshot about you, who are you? Tell us, like, give us the really quick stump speech on who is Sonya and why are you in this role?
Yeah. I would say I'm a bit of an accidental politician. I moved up to Shawnigan Lake in 2011. I'm a teacher, and I was teaching in Victoria. I got offered a teaching job at a school called Dwight in Shawnigan Lake, and we were going to go for 1 year, take our little kids, and spend 1 year as dorm parents. And that was in 2011. It's 13 years later, and we've moved back to Victoria. And oops, and I mean, thinking that you're going to do something for 1 year, just spoiler, it often turns out very differently.
Right.
And what happened was the provincial government decided to issue a permit for a contaminated landfill uphill from the drinking water in Victoria. And so I did what I do. I got involved. I built community, advocated. I became a champion for the vision that we had, which was a clean, safe drinking water for the future of Shawnigan Lake. And it took us 4 years to, as a community, to really, without relenting, the government finally, after 4 years, they revoked that permit. And the minister at the time, Mary Polak, she and I become friends since then. Friendships in politics are really undervalued and should be leaned into more. And in the meantime, I ran for area director so I could be an official spokesperson for Shawnigan. And then I ran to be an MLA because I saw the failures in the decision-making processes that got us the outcome, which I think was a symptom of some of these bad decision-making processes. So, and then I get into the legislature, and it has a long ways to go. I often turn to Adam when we're sitting in the legislature. I say, are we in 1957? Like, what is happening in here? And I realized that what I wasn't seeing was the kind of leadership that I would like to see. Leadership that really focuses on people, that focuses on a healthy planet, that focuses on a healthy environment in politics, that really creates what we're trying to create for the wider community in our own work. And I've called our little caucus, it's Adam and I and 6 women, powerhouse women who have done enormous, extraordinary work in the BC legislature. I call it the oasis of purpose and joy. We are driven by purpose, and we come to work every day because we see what could be possible. But we, as much as we possibly can, exist in this place of joy and humor. There are inflatable bear suits at times. There are card games that not gonna talk about what those card games are, but there's an enormous amount of laughter. There's a lot of Adam putting his head on the table or me lying on the floor, but every day creating that joy in the work that we're doing, and feeling that sense of like, we change the world by being what we want the world to be.
I love that. Rachael, I'm sorry, I'm going to hop in for one more.
Please.
And then you can just take 100.
Are you going to announce you're running for the BC Greens? Because it sounds great over there.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to get this message, but I'm curious. What is killing your joy? What puts your joy to the test right now?
Disappointment.
Tell me more.
When I see that things are solvable, we can solve homelessness. We make robots work on Mars. Like, we can solve homelessness. We can solve the growing inequality crisis that is causing so much harm. We can ensure that we have a social safety net and a healthcare system that functions. Like, I can see that. I can see the pathway. I can look at the evidence and the way that it's working in other places, and I know we can get there. And then when I see the kind of political inaction and the rhetoric that is just so nonsensical, that's so much about pointing fingers and blaming and like, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, I get so disappointed. And I have this motion, I toss the table. I throw my hands up, toss the table. And when I'm feeling that disappointment, I just want to toss the table. But then I orient myself back to, hey, it's so exciting to think about the fact that we could solve these things. And I think about my own time in politics when I was area director for Shawnigan Lake for 3 years. We got the permit revoked. That was a huge outcome. But in the meantime, we really wanted to have a mountain protected in Shawnigan as a regional park. We bought the mountain, 100-hectare mountain, Mount Baldy. It's now a park forevermore. We also wanted to have a nice little area in our local park. So we worked together with Rotary and the timber framers and the local community. We built this beautiful wood frame pavilion, and the community came along and hammered in big nails, and everybody participated. So we have this beautiful pavilion. We got walking and cycling infrastructure, and that was like 3 years. And lowly little area director, believe me, not a lot of power. But what I have learned in my 10 years in elected office is how much can get done if you put your focus on those outcomes and your energy into just navigating how to do it. And I, as an MLA, for me, I called it everyone to the table. Build the tables, come up with the visions, and then just get the work done. And one of the things I'm most proud of is the apprehension of Indigenous children in Cowichan. Huge crisis when I got elected. Huge crisis. It was what people were coming into our office about. Mothers coming in, their babies taken at hospital. If you can imagine, like, this is just, it's a humanitarian crisis. And we built the Cowichan Community of Caring. We met every 6 or 8 weeks for about a year, came up with this vision, and it set into motion all this work that came about. We got funding for a report to be done on what was happening in Cowichan tribes. We got a home for mums and babes, so that there's a place for mums and new babies to go and not have babies removed. And I just learned from the chief of Cowichan tribes, there has not been an apprehension of a child in Cowichan tribes for 3 years. And I think about, like, say, why women? Women work differently. We are not about, like, I've got to be at the front of the room. And we are about, like, hey, how do we solve this? How do we get these things done? Who do we need at the table? Open up the table, open up the conversation, focus on, I mean, think about what it is to be a mom and to have a career and to be working, right? You got to do about 783 things every single day.
Yep.
And if you kind of fuff about and spend a lot of time like, should I really be getting dinner ready for the kids tonight? Or is that in my policy? I don't know. Let's do a recap. Then everyone's going to get really hungry and really crabby very quickly. Women are just like the women that I've worked with in the last 10 years, and it's mostly been women at these tables that I've worked with. It's like we hit a barrier. We go around, we dig under, we climb over, we undo the barrier, we just keep moving. And I think that that's the kind of leadership and motivation we need more of, and less of the kind of old school politics that's like, our party is the best party and your party is the worst party, and everybody should be afraid of you. I'm so exhausted by that. Can we just get the work done, please?
Okay, well, I feel kind of bad asking this question after that lovely summary of what politics should be. But I want to talk about two women, and that's you and the person, one of the people that you're running against in this election. You tomorrow, British Columbians are going to be going to the ballot box, and you have a big race. You've changed ridings in this campaign, and you are now running against Grace Lore, who's a sitting cabinet minister under the NDP. What was your decision-making process like in deciding to take that new riding and also to run against a sitting minister?
Yeah. The decision-making process was essentially, where are my kids and are we going back to Victoria? So like I said, in 2011, we moved up to Shawnigan, thinking we were going for 1 year, rented our house out in Victoria. 13 years later, my middle son is at UVic, second year. And there's no affordable housing for young kids these days. So he and 4 of his friends are living downstairs in our house.
Wow.
But more importantly, my eldest son, who's 30, is about to become a father. Wow. And he and his wife live a couple blocks from our home in Fairfield. And there was no way that I was not going to be around when that baby comes. And I am over the moon. Everything that as a mom, and I'm a mom of 3, stepmom of 2. There's been a lot of parenting in my years. I think I calculated we had something like 25 years of teenagers.
Wow, that's a lot.
A lot. But they're phenomenal. My youngest is 17, so we still got a teenager at home. But I am like the overwhelming joy and excitement that I feel about being a grandmother and being a very involved grandmother, and this next generation. And there's some really interesting research about menopause and how menopause is connected to the really essential role of grandparents in thriving children and thriving young people. And I'm so ready to put those theories to the test. I had a really wonderfully involved mother-in-law when I had my eldest son. We lived upstairs from her. It was a lifesaver to have his grandma and my mother-in-law right there. And now we're back in the same neighborhood. And I'm so ready to play that role. My mom is so close to my kids and my sister's kids. And the connection that they have is extraordinary, and I'm all in. So, political calculation was not the thing. It's like this is coming back home to Victoria after 13 years and moving back into our home, back into our neighborhood where I spent over 20 years, and super excited in November to embark on what I think is going to be the most joyful journey of all, which is being a grandmother.
Wow. I got goosebumps.
I'm listening to you and I'm like, first of all, you're such a breath of fresh
air.
It's so nice to hear these. I mean, I can feel just by listening to you that you're in this for all the right reasons. So I have to ask, because, these elections can be ugly, and it's had its fair share of controversy and conspiracy theories and the whole. Do you sometimes, because you feel like a bit of an idealist to me, like you feel like somebody who, you're an advocate, you clearly care, like you're in it for the right reasons. Does it do these guys sometimes and their rhetoric and the stuff that they're putting out into the universe, is there ever a moment where you're like, God, is this it for me? Do I want to be in the room having these kind of debates and conversations with these people? This is where I'm curiously thinking of.
I love that you've asked this question, because of course, like, there's times when I think I could have such an easier life than the one I do right now. I could just be like the nice teacher. I still see students that I taught 15 years ago. I just ran into one the other day, and she said that she and her friends still get together and talk about the grade 8 class when I was their teacher. I still have the mug that they gave me with their names on it.
Wow.
I love that so much. So, like, I could have this was not my plan. I never imagined that I would be elected. I never imagined I'd be the leader of a political party. I feel like I've kind of backed into this room and looked around like, are any of you spending time in the real world? Like over here, where adults actually work together to solve problems. I had somebody say to me, like, you couldn't expect political parties to work across party lines. I'm like, that's like saying I'm going into a high school and the math teachers and the social studies teachers, they like never talk to each other. They just absolutely are never going to work together. Like, it's so strange the way we frame politics and how we do politics, because what I have seen again and again is when we do get to the table, when we listen to each other, when we take into account all these different perspectives, we actually do phenomenal work together. And then the other decision I've made, and I've made this very consciously, I am the only returning leader in BC in this election, also the only elected leader, by the way. Putting that out there. I did run in a leadership race against 2 other people. The other 2 leaders were both acclaimed.
I never thought about that.
I know. I love democracy. Really love democracy.
Wow.
But I've articulated a decision that I've made going into this campaign that really helps me every day, which is I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to be my whole and true self, because after this election, whatever happens, I don't want to be haunted by some other self that I tried to be in this election. And this way, I come out on the other side of the election. I think we're going to do well. I think we're going to have a historic outcome. But regardless of the outcome, I go home at the end of this election with just me, one version of me, this true person. When I'm speaking, it's coming from here. It's coming from the work I've done for 7 years as an MLA to understand how we got to this place, what are the systemic problems that we're trying to solve, and what are the answers. I'm very rarely up in this space, in my headspace. I am speaking from my heart.
I feel that.
Makes it easy too. I don't have to try to remember what I said last time, because I just say what I think and truly believe. So
You're not memorizing the lines?
No, I'm really, you can ask my staff. I'm not a message box. They're like, wrap it up, Sonia. But I feel it. I feel so deeply. Okay, fun fact, I studied 12th century theology. I did a master's degree in medieval history. And I studied a theologian named Hugh of St. Victor, who taught in Paris in the 1100s. And his writings are so beautiful. And he talks about how much he understands love and the appreciation of the world around us. And his whole theology was rooted in history. And I thought about this the other day. I spent 3 years working on my master's degree. I was a single mom, and I was just doing this because I loved history so much. And I feel like I spent those 3 years being taught by this 12th century teacher and philosopher and theologian how to love the world. And I really love the world. I love people. I love the world. I love what we have the potential to do and be. And that's what drives me.
Okay, I have 2 burning questions. Can I ask them?
Yeah. Anything.
Okay. 1, voters again are going to the ballot box tomorrow. A lot of people always ask the BC Greens and their policies, what do you stand for outside of environmental policy? I think that's a bit confusing for people.
Yeah. Well, our platform has been released since the first week of October. So there's a lot in there that shows what we stand for. But I think the fundamental thing, when you think about the BC Greens, we were formed 41 years ago.
Wow.
Out of a desire to protect old growth forests in this province. We were the first party that really focused on protection of old growth forests. We're still there. We're still saying, hey, it's an extraordinary biodiversity and the best carbon sink you're going to ever find in the whole world. So we should take care of it. Also beautiful. If you ever spend time in an old growth forest, it's like, wow, this makes me feel really good to be here. But the Greens historically, have been focused on the environment, have been focused on climate, and we're way out in front of talking about the impacts of climate change before other political parties were there. But the foundational principles of, a belief in equity, in social justice, in respect for diversity, in evidence-based policy making, in looking at what does the evidence and data tell us about how to have affordable housing, how to have a healthcare system that works, how to address the social crises we're seeing, like the drug crisis, how to ensure that we have healthy environmental systems that make sure that we have, those little things that we depend on, like food and water and clean air to survive. So the big picture, and I think that we've demonstrated in the last 7 years in particular, we are not a one issue party. And I would encourage people to go look at Hansard. And you can see in Hansard, this is the record of the debates, how many things Adam Olsen and I have talked about in the last 7 years, the list is A to Z. And when you compare that to other people in the legislature, usually it's a pretty narrow range of topics. We are focused on legislation that would prevent the misuse of non-disclosure agreements so that the victims of sexual assault and sexual harassment are the ones who are being protected, not the perpetrators, right? We are, off the top, talking about menopause as a public health issue. We are advocating for community health centers because guess what? They work better than any other form of primary care. We are looking at the whole spectrum of how do we make this province healthier and better for everybody. And the orientation of all of our policy is let's measure well-being. Let's measure if these investments and these policies are contributing to more well-being or less well-being. And that's a really effective measure to know that government is working in a way that benefits people.
Oh, I love that. I have one final question with our last few minutes. Can I take the question, Amanda, or do you have a burning question?
No, this is yours.
Okay.
I mean, I have 10 burning questions, but I'll give it to you.
Okay. Well, we're going to have you back, Sonia, because you are just such a fascinating. Yeah, we need to do a whole episode with you.
I agree.
So in 2017, Andrew, was it 2017 or 2018, the election? In 17. That's okay. My dates are right. I was second guessing myself there. 2017, Andrew Weaver was the leader of the BC Greens, and he joined, we know this federally, a confidence and supply agreement with the NDP to form government. After Christy Clark had been sworn in as premier, a cabinet was put into place, and the BC Liberals lost government. If tomorrow it turns out that either the NDP or John Rustad and David Eby or John Rustad and the Conservatives need the seats that the Greens hold in order to form government, would you consider replicating history?
I like to learn from history. So, I studied history, I think, and I was at that negotiating table in 2017. I'm not just the only returning leader. I'm not just the only elected leader. I'm the only leader or person now that was involved in any of that in 2017 that still stands. What I want to focus on, and I really hope we have a minority outcome, because giving all the power to one party is not a way to get good government in this province. We see it being misused. We see the concentration of power in the Premier's office. We see a total abandonment of the democratic principles of how the legislature is supposed to work. It's been really bad, actually. I cried in last November when debate got shut down on 4 bills at the same time. And we didn't chance as legislators to do our jobs. So my focus, if we are the benefit of being in a minority outcome and say we have a nice caucus of Greens, we have a couple of strong independents, and we have no party with all of the power, it is, okay, how do we best serve British Columbians? How do we create conditions right now? Because there's no rules that say it has to be a confidence and supply agreement. There's no rule that says that you can't have a coalition government. There's no rule that says that you can actually create the conditions that you want out of a parliamentary democracy. We have lots of examples around the world that ensure a couple of things. Real accountability. So government can't just do whatever it wants with nobody being able to hold them accountable. Real transparency. Here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the timeline. Watch us get it done. And most importantly, a real focus on delivering services that the provincial government should be delivering to people of BC: healthcare, a social safety net, truly affordable housing, infrastructure, a thriving education system. And so my orientation tomorrow, if we're in a minority, which I really hope we are, is to the people of BC.
I love that. All right. Well, we'll be watching.
Yeah, it's a total possibility. And I think we should embrace the idea that distributing power and responsibility is how we get the best outcomes out of government. Concentrating power, not so great. Distributing power, getting all those perspectives around the table, just like we talked about at the beginning, is how we get the best outcomes.
Thank you so much. Like we said a moment ago, we would love to have you back. You deserve a full hour. You've been really interesting to listen to. You've given a lot of insights that I think will be really imperative to people as they go to the polls tomorrow. And we really appreciate that you've taken time out of your crazy busy schedule to be here with us.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, John Restad, the leader of the BC Conservatives, is not part of this episode. We made an initial ask to him in July and were ultimately told that he could not do it. We're sorry that we can't share his voice with you, our audience. Thank you for listening. New episodes air every Friday.
Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and find us at beyondaballot.com.